Maybe it is true that the Arnold and the Olympia judge a bit differently.
I'm going to be explaining exactly what went wrong, what went right, going over physique, everything so that you can understand exactly what happened at the Olympia. Coach Greg, in today's video, I'm going to be explaining how is it possible that Wesley Vissers went from first place at the Arnold's to 8th place at the Olympia.
Of course, coming from a double victory at the Arnold, it is a disappointment. I look at some pictures, and when I look at my shape, I'm not really that disappointed with the shape that I brought.
And so clearly disappointed, but rightfully so. I'm going to be explaining exactly what went wrong, what went right, going over physique, everything so that you can understand exactly what happened at the Olympia. And so first things first. When Wesley Vissers competed at the Arnold's, the level of competition was far below what it was at the Olympia. Urs and Ramon Dino, both of which he beat at the Arnold's, they were significantly improved at the Olympia in comparison to how they were at the Arnold's. They made significant improvements while Wesley Vissers, he actually regressed. And next, you see him talking to Mike Sommerfeld. Mike Sommerfeld got second. He beat both Ramon Dino and Urs. Had Mike Sommerfeld showed up looking like this at the Arnold's, he would have won. But he wasn't at the competition. And so considering there were a number of competitors who weren't even at the Arnold's, who were at the Olympia, that explains how he's able to drop down that far.
Maybe it is true that the Arnold and the Olympia judge a bit differently, depending on what kind of physique they want to see. I'm, of course, as I mentioned, a Golden-era bodybuilder. Maybe here they judge a little differently.
And so here's the thing. At the Olympia, they judged it more as they would a bodybuilding competition. And what does that mean? Well, in bodybuilding, they're looking for the biggest, leanest, and the best shape. In classic physique, oftentimes they're looking for more the physiques of old. The Arnold-esque type of physique. Wesley Vissers has a physique very similar to Arnold. He has a powering upper body, but is in fact a little bit weaker in the legs, same as Arnold. And so when he competed at the Arnold Classic, keyword Arnold Classic, he had the look that they were looking for. At the Olympia, where the tradition is to be the best bodybuilder, it is in fact a slightly different look. And so Wesley Vissers is very tall, but he doesn't have the same kind of symmetry as many of the other bodybuilders. And as you look at the conditioning, he is in fact in very good shape. Upper body, huge, legs very conditioned. However, the legs not quite as big as his upper body in comparison to someone who placed ahead of him. For example, Mike Sommerfeld. The quads are out of this world. Mike Sommerfeld is a much better bodybuilder than Wesley Vissers. He has more thickness, he has crazier quad development, and overall it's an impressive physique. On the side, when he does a side chest pose, he doesn't have the hamstrings, the thickness of some of the other competitors. And from the rear, his lower half is his greatest weakness. The hamstrings, the thickness, the bulging out of the quads to the side, you just don't see it. He has the back, that he has in spades, but he also has some asymmetry. The lat development on his right side is clearly better developed than that on the left. Notice the right side of his body in comparison to the left. The right lat in particular, does it not appear to have more muscle on the right than he does on the left? And as you compare the top half with the bottom, he doesn't have the fullness and the muscle mass as his legs to balance out his upper body. And so yes, he is very impressive, in particular the back. The delt striations, the muscles, the detail, it's truly remarkable. But if you're judging it from a bodybuilding vantage point over a classic physique standpoint, he doesn't stand out as much as some of the other competitors. And so on this side bicep pose, whatever is going on right here, I get rid of that. He's exposing a weakness. He has a wider waist. We all know this. But what he's doing right here is he's showing the world, look at my waist. It's not that small. He's not displaying a proper vacuum. He looks thick. From the side, he's looking thick. If I compared the width of his quads to that of his stomach actually looks wider than his waist. And so when Chris Bumstead or Ramon Dino turn to the side, it's almost as though they disappear. The waist is so small. They're sucking. You want to disappear from the side. I'm gone. I don't exist anymore. You see the chest, you see the legs, but you don't see the stomach. Wesley Vissers appears to be bloated. Yes, he's shredded, he has the conditioning, but he doesn't have the proportions. And so that is what he's lacking here. He isn't proportionate the way some of the other competitors are. And so if I were him, I would completely abolish this pose. It's not working for you. Show and highlight your strengths. The biceps and his Arnold pull, not down here, but up there. Get it higher. Bring it towards the judges. Bring the bicep to the crowd. I own you. Look at this thing. Not here. It's not here. It's not it. This is not doing it. It's got to be higher. And so what do I notice when he does that? I see a great left bicep and I see smaller legs. And so when he turns to the side, he's showing, I have legs like Arnold. That is not a strength at the Mr. Olympia competition. And yes, the most musculars do all of that. The crab pose, the hands on hips, keep showing us the most musculars. That's where you stand out. The grainy, hard conditioning of the upper body. The sheer size, 6'2", use it to your advantage. Now, granted, I like Wesley Visor's physique. I would have placed him higher, and so in no way do I see him as being in 8th place. Certainly, I would have wanted him to place ahead of Michael DeBull, who finished 7th place, as I don't feel he has a classic physique. And so there's two ways that they can go. They can keep rewarding the biggest bodybuilder. The best bodybuilder on stage. And so, for example, Mike Sommerfeld, if this were a bodybuilding competition, he wins it. He was the thickest, he had the most muscle, he was shredded, and he also had a small waist. And so he wins a bodybuilding competition. But is classic physique not supposed to be slightly different than bodybuilding? After all, why have different divisions if they're going to judge exactly the same? They could have different weight classes. They could make it like the amateurs. We have the lightweight, the middleweight, the heavyweight, and the super heavyweight. Mike Sommerfeld looks like a bodybuilder. Chris Bumstead looks like a classic physique competitor. And so remember, Chris Bumstead won by a split decision. But should he? Should it not be classic physique? And so my opinion is they should not just be rewarding the best bodybuilder, but the person with the best, most aesthetic classic physique. And so listen, guys, it's apples and oranges. All have amazing physiques. We have Wesley Visors standing against Michael DeBull. I prefer Wesley Visors. However, many of the judges preferred Michael DeBull. But on the right, for example, we have Jose, and many people prefer Jose. Bodybuilding is a subjective sport. I can't sit here and say, well, because his leg is this way and that guy's leg is that way, he clearly wins. There's nothing clear about it. In the same way, some people felt that Derek Lunsford deserved the title. Others said Samson Dota, while others said Hadi Choopan. It's okay. But the overall collective opinion of the judges is that Wesley Visors did not have the size in the lower half to balance out the upper half. He had very good conditioning, however, not so much in the hamstrings. And when he turned to the side, he didn't quite have the balance of some of the other competitors. And although Wesley Visors is shredded, let's compare him to Michael DeBull. Notice Michael DeBull's hamstrings as well as his glutes. Compare that to Wesley Visors. Are you seeing the difference? Wesley Visors not even nearly as lean as Michael DeBull, at least in the hamstrings and the glutes. Is he shredded in other areas? Absolutely. But you're witnessing it as I am. Does Wesley Visors, in your mind, have the same level of conditioning as Michael DeBull? I don't think so. And so if you're judging the show based on conditioning, Michael DeBull clearly beats Wesley Visors. But my personal opinion is Wesley Visors' back is so far superior than Michael DeBull that I give him the pass on having lacking glute striations because he's so much more empowering in other areas. Remember, Chris Bumstead won the Mr. Olympia with horrible biceps. Does anyone feel that Chris Bumstead has great-looking arms? Of course not. But yeah, he still won. And so you give him the pass. He has such a tiny waist, it looks so aesthetic, that it's okay if his biceps aren't perfect. Who has the fewest flaws? Everyone has flaws. Wesley Visors has flaws. And unfortunately, it was only good enough for 8th place on this day. And so as we see the first call out, the top 8 competitors, Wesley on the left, his quads are popping out. The sheer size of him, it's amazing. However, he does have a thicker waist. In comparison, look at the smallness of the waist of Mike Sommerfeld, Chris Bumstead, and Ramon Dino. Their waists are tiny. In comparison, they have very wide shoulders, and they also have very nice thighs. Also, Wesley Visors' torso, he has a very long waist. It's elongated. It's not 100% ideal. And so it's a slight flaw. It does in fact hurt him, and it does in fact hurt him a little bit. But from the front, he's absolutely nowhere near 8th place. But it's when he turns to the rear, when he displays his lack of glute and hamstring striations, that really makes him stand out. In the rear double bicep pose, although he arguably has the best back end stage, he doesn't show glute striations, nor does he have properly developed hamstrings. And so, which athlete has the least amount of weaknesses? It's certainly not Wesley. It arguably could be Mike Sommerfeld, but also, of course, Chris Bumstead. And so if this were just a bodybuilding competition, I do believe Mike would have won. But the Olympia still realizes, hey, this is classic physique. Chris has won 5 consecutive times. And so Mike Sommerfeld narrowly lost out this competition. Remember, it was a split decision and they only judged the athletes in the morning. Had they have rejudged the show at night, who knows? Perhaps he would have won. And so what can Wesley Vissers do next year? He's got to work on the hamstrings and the glutes and get even more conditioned. He has to be mind-blowing shredded. He doesn't have the same shape and aesthetics of a Mike Sommerfeld, Ramon Dino, or even newcomers such as One Punch Man on Instagram, known as Nile. And so these guys, if they can come in with close to 10 pounds more muscle, look for them to leapfrog everyone. There you have it. Hopefully this helps. You can understand what's going on. Remember, it's a very subjective sport, and just because somebody doesn't win the competition doesn't mean they're not very good. But one thing I highly recommend for Nile and others is, of course, Geo2 Max and Turk Builder. Imagine prepping for the Olympia without this. Imagine you're the best athletes in the world and you're competing at the top level without Turk Builder and Geo2 Max. Now I get it. Some of you are not natty. Some of you, I get it. And so if you're looking to have better aggression in the gym, more cardio, greater endurance, of course you're going to be using Geo2 Max and Turk Builder. Code Greg, 15% off. And yeah, I hear ya. Oh, I don't know if it'll work. There's a money back freaking guarantee. And so what do you have to lose? Click the link in the description and buy the entire year's worth. You don't want to miss it. And if you're struggling with the diet, you got more hunger cravings than last time, and you can't handle chicken, broccoli, and rice all the time, you know what to do. You get the freaking cookbook. Come on, guys. It's 15% off. Code Greg. Subscribe, click the bell button, comment to boost the algorithm, like this video if you liked it. Watch one of those 2 bloops right there. Watch it now. And of course, you can get the coaching plans by me and my team, the Hard and Last Time clothing line. You get all this on the website. If you got no money, get the loan. It's worth it. Of course, you want to get a loan. And until next time, I am out.